I just wanna have peace. Pay for the bill, let them take my car, never see the receipt. Good health, we proud, but everybody around prosperity.
What's up, guys, and welcome to the LivBtr Podcast. This is your host, Jay Siano, and this is the show for people trying to optimize every area of their life. Let's go.
I just wanna have peace.
Welcome to the show.
I am glad to be here, Jay.
I'm happy to have you, and we've been communicating and paying attention to each other's content. There's a lot of synergies, and do you know what my favorite word in the English language is?
No, but I bet you're going to tell me.
Scale.
I love it.
And the fact that you have that in the name of your business obviously makes me very happy. So do explain exactly what it is that you do and give everybody a little better understanding of who you are.
Yeah. So scale, in order to scale, you have to have systems. And most entrepreneurs set out to build freedom, but end up trapped in their businesses because they don't have systems. Or another reason why they get trapped is because we're super passionate and don't know how to have an on-off switch. We're all gas and no brake, and we end up trapped. So what I do is I just come alongside and help people put structural systems in place, psychological systems in place, and social systems in place, which hold them accountable to the structures and the systems that really create the freedom for them.
So what was the inspiration to get in this line of work? How did you get here?
Yeah, so this is like 20-year story. Started when I graduated high school at 16. And my father was a really successful entrepreneur in real estate. So taught people how to invest in real estate, podcast, seminars, all of that kind of stuff. And he didn't want me to go to college. So he said, come work with me for 2 years. And if at 18, you don't like it, you can go to college and be the same age as everybody else. So I started working for him, answering the phones, taking registrations for the seminars and such. And maybe like 6 months in, I said, I hate this. I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, that's fine. You don't have to do it anymore, but you have to hire and train your replacement, and handed me a copy of E-Myth by Michael Gerber.
Sure.
And so when I got that book, I read it. I created this whole like standard operating procedures manual for my replacement, hired them, trained them. And then I realized, oh crap, I've got to like manage and lead this person. And I know nothing about leadership and growth and all of that. So then I went down the rabbit trail of, just accountability and leadership and management and empowerment and all of that you move into when you start scaling. So that's like the birthplace of it. I bought my first property when I was 18. And so I didn't ever go to college. And I just kind of fell into organizing businesses. And then I went on and built several of my own. And then my mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer in, I think it was 2014.
Okay.
And so my father called me and said, will you come run the businesses again so I can take care of her? And I said, sure, but I really want freedom as well. So I'm going to put this whole new and improved system in place where it self-runs, and we only have to make decisions based on a dashboard, and we get right people in the right seats, all of that. It was so successful that all of his clients started asking me to do it for them. And
Wow.
So that's how Organized to Scale became a business. And I really was not intending to start another business, but it just organically happened.
So now I realize we're even more aligned than I thought we were, because I help businesses organize and scale. That's basically what I do for a living. I am in the real estate business for 23 years. My mom was diagnosed with cancer and unfortunately passed away when I was in my early 20s. So a lot of synergies there. Pretty crazy, actually. So what type of property was it that you purchased? What was your first property?
It was a fourplex in Phoenix.
I went to college in Arizona. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. My family lives in Gilbert there now.
Okay.
So I go back and visit often, but I actually was born and raised in California.
I was there last week.
Okay. Yeah. It's changed a lot recently.
For sure.
I actually made a ton of money in real estate and lost a ton too. So I was young when I first started. And so I think I got into the illusion that you just keep investing and the money just keeps coming and there's no market cycles.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot through that process.
Well, I think that, that's very, I'm happy that you said that because, having been through so many cycles at this point in my career, I've always been very conservative on the investing side because really I spend the bulk of my time advising other folks, but being on the retail real estate side of the business, I help businesses expand and scale across the country essentially. So when you say that you obviously made a lot of money and then you lost a lot of money, nothing great lasts forever. And if you're not really like paying attention to the market and being conservative, you can definitely get caught holding the bag, which a lot of people do, especially when you're young, because you think you can only go up essentially, right?
Yeah. And I think that you're learning your ego and how to manage your ego. And I think that takes some hard knocks to learn.
Yeah.
And I think it's normal. I used to judge that journey and think that it was something wrong or bad or shameful about kind of going through your own evolution. But now I really feel like it's necessary. And so the cycle of learning and watching other people fall down and get back up and doing it yourself, and then just having a community of people that cheer you on and not shame the process has been helpful, because I think I don't know when this is going to get released, but even in the cycle we're in right now, there's a lot of people that are going to experience what I experienced in 2008. And, they may want to hide from it versus saying, hey, you know what? Oops, made a mistake, dust myself off, and close the window of the time that it impacts them. I think sometimes we let it impact us longer than it needs to, instead of just accepting it as part of the journey.
Yeah, I'm happy you said that because, again, the title of this podcast is the LivBtr Podcast. And I actually have another podcast that's more about actually deal making and being a deal junkie and so on and so forth. So would you say that you operate in your personal life similarly to what you just described as far as managing ego and evolving as a person and, are there qualities of yours that you had earlier in life that you are dealing with, constantly trying to essentially be a better person? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think you're talking about our shadows. And we all have shadows. And the flip side, like one of the things I think that is my superpower is I'm really intuitive. And I could know a decision that needed to be made. I could know a person that we need to align with really quickly. Yeah. And early on, I didn't listen. I thought that, no, I have to do business the way everybody else is doing business. And then I started realizing that my unique wiring is my gift, and leaning into that is part of it. But learning to trust that was the real shadow journey, is because so many times in life we self-betray. But we don't call it that. We call it something else. Like, oh, that person took advantage of me, or that deal went sideways. But in so many ways, when we look back and self-reflect, we can see points of decision in ourselves where we self-betrayed. And so I think that's what I'm continually up-leveling in myself, is like all of those micro moments of choosing to make aligned choices for myself that nobody else would even know about.
So what else do you do? Because, you seem pretty enlightened. And what else do you focus on kind of outside of work? I'm seeing some other sides of you here. And again, like since we met on social media and have been following each other, our content, what's exciting about doing this is I just felt like there was a similarity, a connection, but I didn't know much about you. And it's like, wait a minute, did I know this about like the real estate stuff? I don't think so. No. So there's definitely more that you're doing that I don't think we've uncovered yet.
Yeah. So speaking to the enlightened side of me, I definitely believe I'm body and spirit. And so my path is integrating those two sides of myself within me. And so I used to just be all mind over matter and grind, hustle, force. And now I feel like I co-create with my spirit with it's more fruitful, and I think it's also more divine. Like the impact ends up being more divine. And so outside of work, and I don't even think what I do is work because I love organizing. I'm just an organizer. I like organizing people. I like organizing resources. I like aligning everybody and everything towards a common mission. And so that's what I do in work, but it's systems and people and projects. But I do that in my life too. It's communities, it's traditions, it's meaningful moments. Like I do that in my personal life. And some of the things I enjoy doing that I think that keep me rooted as a human is, working out, eating right, being surrounded by people that are ambitious and driven, but also rooted and grounded. Because early on, when I was ambitious and young, I was surrounded by people that were ambitious and young. And sometimes that results in a little bit of chaotic, egocentric energy. Whereas the older I've gotten and the more I have been around people who have had life experience, then I think we cling to the things that are innate in us, and we don't over-identify with our successes or over-identify with our failures.
Interesting. So now I'm having fun. So because it's like, I feel like a lot of what you are talking about resonates with me, and I have some struggles with things, and I'm curious to get your perspective on these things. So how do you define success?
Inner congruence.
And what is your perspective on money and luxurious things?
I think it's a result of inner congruence.
It makes sense, but I'm going to take it a step further. Like, I'm saying this because I used to operate a lot out of ego, just being a alpha male, very much similar to what you described, like grinding and being so excited that it's the holidays and I'm going to be in the office and I'm going to work, more than anybody else. And you can't outwork me. And regardless of the fact that other people are slowing down, this is when I get ahead.
Yes.
And I still have that like mindset on some level. I can't stop that. It's just how I'm wired. But I'm also like sitting in my sauna, like about to talk into my camera about something like that. And then I like stop myself because I'm like, I don't want to really be like that. I want to spend the holidays with my family and like, take my foot off the gas a little bit. But I have such a tough time with that.
Yeah. The moment I think it changed for me was when my mom died.
So she did pass away. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yes, she passed away. Well, so the timing of this conversation is interesting because we just celebrated 4 years of her, 4 years in heaven. And
what was the date?
December 13th.
Okay. Yeah, we just celebrated, it's crazy, but the 23rd year on November 28th.
Yeah. So the holidays are hard because Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of that, and then it's forever bittersweet because it's tied to a deep loss.
Yes. And especially with her passing, like in that time, for me, it's also my mother's birthday is right next to Mother's Day. So it's like that really sucks, to be honest. And then my birthday's Thanksgiving or the day before, the day after. So it kind of leads, it's like a really enjoyable, exciting, like kickoff to the holiday season, right? And Thanksgiving, we're all with friends and family and all the things. And then it's the anniversary. And then it's not, then it's Christmas and so on. It's like a roller coaster of emotions. And obviously at 4 years, it's definitely, it's an open wound. For me, I'm like, I've been trying to deal with my trauma and coping for 23 years now, where it's like, it's a little different.
Yeah. It's a deep loss. My mom was my best friend. And so I didn't just lose a mother. I lost a deep soul friend. Yeah. And it's been really interesting because my sister, she's also my integrator. She and our relationship got so much stronger. It was like we really went into, we started going back through the history of our trauma and our coping and our ancestral, conditioning, and working on it, because some of the things that she and I experienced from just our upbringing also, I think, transfers over into business, because we're whole beings. And so even our leadership style, like, you can't master and scale your business unless you master and scale yourself. And so I think that kind of all goes together. But when my mom died, I remember saying, if I only had 25 more years to live, what would I want to do with my life? Do I want to sit in the office and not have meaningful memories? And so now when I do my annual calendar planning, I pre-schedule all my traditions. So like all the things I want to do first that are going to be memory making moments. And then I schedule everything else that is, working out, taking care of myself, then all of the seminars and conferences and events that we go to, and then all of the creator content that we have to create. Then I plug everything else in, but my priority is the meaningful moments. And then whatever's left over is what I then plug into it as well. But at the same time, I still, in the last 4 years, I think running from my grief led me back to my alpha self. Like, I just was like, okay, I'm going to work, because it was my comfort place that gave me, I knew I was going to be good at it. I knew I was going to be able to achieve a lot. I knew it would give me a sense of significance and purpose. And so I went into that. And then in probably the last year and a half is when I was like, whoa, I am going back to the same cycle that I've always done, which is just grind. And then that's when I had like more of that wake up call within myself that no. And so I bought a beach cottage with 10,000 people live there. And I spend most of my time there so that I don't have the energy of the city to make me lean into my alpha, because my alpha, she comes out all the time on her own. Like, I don't need to try to encourage that side of me. That side exists. The part of me that I need to encourage is my Zen, chill, rooted, grounded side. And so I try to create environments for myself that nurture that side of me, knowing my alpha is always going to be there.
That's so interesting. And I could actually, I could learn from that, because, I kind of keep myself so attached to places like New York City, where I feel like I'm with my people, because, we're just moving and shaking. But I also love detaching, and I love being in the, in the mountains and being really far from people and just being one with nature. I enjoy both equally. And I try to balance my time as much as possible. I also, I became a workaholic the minute my mother passed, which has had, a great effect on, me being a successful entrepreneur and, owning businesses and so on and so forth. But also I actually started to drink a lot more than I even did in like the college kind of party phase, to just numb myself. So I found myself drinking and working, and that's like all I would do. And it was a really depressing cycle for me. And I just kind of did that until I turned 40, and I had this like awakening where I just, I realized that there is so much more to life, and that I had just gone through so many milestones in life where I was just numb to a lot of the things, and spending time with my young kids and not being in the right mindset or really present. And I felt terrible about that. And I've made all the changes I could possibly make, to today, where it's just so different for me, similar to how you made the changes of, moving to a beach cottage and really focusing on making memories and things of that nature. It's nice that you were able to see that.
Yeah. I think I don't know how it was for you. I took care of my mom when she was battling cancer. So I was there the last 18 months of her life, there when her soul transitioned. And my motto every day was, I want to be a peaceful presence. I want to show up and be a peaceful presence for her, because there at any moment, going through it, the doctor can come and say, oh, it's going great. And the next day it's going terrible. And it's just a roller coaster. And you're in and out of the hospital. You have good days, you have miserable days. And that energy, I actually was doing 75 hard. So I knew when Yes, that's my alpha coming out. So I was doing 75 hard while I was taking care of her. I think that really helped keep me grounded because I was super clean in my own body, which means I think my emotions were really clean, which allowed me to show up in the way that I did. And so every time when, I do all the business coaching and mentorship and all that stuff, when people ask me, what is a time in your life when you've been the best version of yourself? And I always reflect on that time, even though it was the hardest time, I was the best version of me because I had to call in all of my faculties to show up for my mother. And I also could not control anything. So it was like this environment where I had to have complete surrender, but also complete emotional control. And so it was such an interesting time. So I always, when I think of how to engineer that, I feel like I have a cellular memory of it from doing it with my mother that I continually in today try to get back to, of integrating. And I think you made a comment about this, like kind of knowing in your bones, you're being who you're becoming. And then when you are being who you're becoming, then the external results start reflecting what your inner being is becoming.
Did you, what parts of 75 hard would you say you incorporated into your life consistently after completing it?
Well, I read every day. I work out every day. I don't drink most days, but I do drink. I do follow, I follow a diet consistently pretty much anyways, but I did all of that even before 75 hard.
Sure.
So I think the part that was really good for me was just the mental toughness for the duration of it.
Oh yeah. The discipline too, just like the non-negotiables.
Yeah. Like you don't negotiate with yourself. I think that is probably what I continue to take with me was not so the things, but I'm not negotiating with myself anymore. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. Yeah. And that is also going back to trust and micro self-betrayals. Those are the micro self-betrayals that erode our forward motion because it hurts our confidence and our belief in ourselves. And so nobody will ever see it, but those are the moments, like stop negotiating with yourself.
That's so crazy. Yeah. So I just started this thing on my story of jumping in the ice bath in the morning and actually talking to the camera and kind of like letting my community pick the topic. Mm-hmm. And this morning was specifically about that, like where you're just, if you say you're going to do something, just do it. And yesterday was about 75 hard. And I haven't like talked about 75 hard in a while, but the first time I did 75 hard was the first time I didn't drink for 75 days, like since I have no idea when. And it was like, that's what was eye-opening to me. Like I started to like get to know myself on a different level and like sit with the trauma and sit with, the things instead of just, I'm stressed out. Like, let me go hang out and socialize and have some cocktails. Which changed my life forever. It's been pretty amazing.
What I'm hearing you say is you faced your demons.
100%. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it's, because to what you said earlier about like becoming, right? Mm-hmm. Like that word to me is so important because I think that I thought that I was a lot further along before I actually like got rid of the fog, sort of speak. And I also I think we have a tendency to tell ourselves that we're better than we are, that we work harder than we do, that we work out harder than we do. And as you start to like surround yourself with people that are better than you at specific things, you get to really understand the difference. Like, wow, I thought I was working out hard. I thought I was spending a lot of time in the gym and eating right and all the things. And then you get next to like an athlete and you're like, holy shit, like I barely work out, and it's all about the leveling up, but it's for yourself, right? It's not to impress them. It's again, to really show up for yourself. And if you say you're going to do something, do it. And I think that's how we create confidence And I
Yes.
think it's really like, for me, it's tough to talk about confidence because sometimes I think people perceive it as arrogant or cocky, but in reality, I just am showing up for myself and I'm saying yes to things I'm scared of and doing it anyway. And then I become more confident and I'm somewhat proud of that, but I don't really feel like I don't get to talk about it because I get judged by even people super close to me.
Yeah. I think doing hard things is the path towards
Yeah.
it. And you're not
What are you doing hard in 2024? Have you scheduled that in your making memories calendar?
So actually my the hard things that I've been doing lately is I've always organized and scaled businesses behind the scenes. So I've been integrator primarily. And now I'm visionary. And so that is hard for me because visionary does not necessarily have as many check boxes. Integrator role has a ton of check boxes. Charismatic, it's on camera, yes, there's check boxes to that because you could show up on a podcast, you could host your own podcast, but it's not as rewarding. There's only like 1 or 2 check boxes. Whereas as an integrator, you got 100 check boxes and you can hustle your way through them. So I feel like for me, hard is looking very different than what I thought hard is. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I love that. It's just, again, it's outside of your comfort zone. You're being intentional about doing things that are different than what you were doing previously.
Mm-hmm.
That's growth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any physical challenges in the calendar?
No, but I feel like on Instagram, you called me out for not doing ice bath. So maybe I need to do that.
I feel like some of the best growth and community building is through doing difficult physical things together.
Yes.
Like, that feeling is so amazing. I think you should do that. I think you should do that. Or anything for that matter. I signed up for Everesting, which is climbing the equivalent of Mount Everest. So I'm doing that. Yeah.
My girlfriend, who I'm an EO, and she and our forum was saying that we wanted to do a health challenge. And everyone was just wanting to do like something every day on the calendar. And I'm like, no. And she's like, no, that doesn't work for us. We've got to like climb Mount Everest, climb the Mount Kilimanjaro. We need like an end goal.
100%. Yeah, that's like, by the way, I have no clue what to expect. I just fractured my collarbone, so I'm unfortunately not able to strength train upper body stuff. So now I'm like only basically doing like cardio things and walking on an incline. I can't really run because I'm still like in pain. But all of it's interesting how life throws things at you, and you just have to adjust. You just can't stop. You just need to adjust.
Yes, I had in November, December, 2 herniated discs in my neck.
Oh, that's not fun.
No.
What did you do to work through that?
Well, I train with, functional patterns. Have you heard of it?
No, explain.
It's like, it's kind of a franchise thing, but it's functional movement. And everybody who knows functional patterns who's listening is probably going to not appreciate how I describe it. But for me, so what it does for me is I feel like it gives me my mind-body connection into my physical thing. And when I first started doing it, I joked that it was pretend workouts because I was used to the high intensity CrossFit style workouts.
Sure.
That you just leave everything, your soul isn't even in you at the end of the workout. That's what I used to do. And then when I started doing functional patterns, it was like basically breathing and using your breath in conjunction with your movements to strengthen your core and your spine and all of this. And I feel like it has allowed me to not have to stretch as much.
Okay.
But it allows me to keep my spine together. So it's like, so I don't know.
No, that's interesting. I have to look into that because I literally travel the country looking for like different concepts that I can help scale. And I've never heard of that one. Where are you based?
Texas.
Where? What part?
Austin, and then the coast, which is down in Rockport.
Oh, amazing. So I'm doing an event February 14th with Dr. Gabrielle Lyon in Austin at
Oh,
the
okay.
Hotel Van Zandt.
Yes. Oh, I love that hotel.
Yeah, it's great. Austin's like the mecca for all of this.
It is.
It's
You'll love going to Generator Lab. I know the owner of it,
okay.
but you go. It is sauna, cold therapy, in and out, and it's a protocol, and it's called Generator Lab.
So we're doing an ice bath then in February. That's when you're gonna do it. Generator Lab.
Yes, you'll love it there.
Interesting. Yeah, because there's so many. I mean, Austin's like the mecca for that stuff. It's contrast therapy was it's been around there forever. I feel like the rest of the country is now starting to discover it, but the indoor outdoor gyms on it and collective and squash fitness, like the fitness places are insane. So good. So good. So what goals do you have personally and professionally for the year coming up, since we're wrapping up 2023 now? What do you have? Do you set, actually, let's talk about goal setting. Like, do you actually set goal? You're all into SOPs and KPIs and all the things. Do you actually do that for yourself personally? Like, do you reverse engineer the calendar year?
I used to do that.
Yeah.
So I am actually experimenting with something very different this year.
Okay.
And I think, going back to what I said earlier, one of my superpowers is my intuition.
Yes.
And I haven't been using it. And I think it's hurt me in a lot of ways. And so my two things that I'm working on is saying no and listening to my intuition. Those are my two things. And so I was reflecting, as I always do now for 2024. And I was like, okay, what are my goals? And I did what I always do, which is start writing it out with measurable, smart goals, as we all know how to do. And then I'm like, I feel like I'm just forcing myself to do this because it's the thing that's always worked for me. But it doesn't feel like I'll be able to bring my intuition with me because I'm going to be so over-structuring it. So now I decided I want intention setting. So instead of goal setting, intention setting, which is I want meaningful memories with people that feed my soul, like who energize me. I don't want to be around people who drain me. I want to be around people who energize me, because when I'm energized, I create really great things. Sure. I'm a better person. I create better environments. I create better work products. I create better, I empower more heroes around me when I'm energetic. And so my intention setting is I want to intentionally put myself in environments that energize me. And that is the overarching theme of my 2024. And I think that's going to draw me into, conversations like this, because I love doing this type of thing. We're launching a podcast of our own and YouTube channel. So that I think that's very energizing for me. We have a couple of JVs that we're doing business wise. And it's going to draw me into physical fitness, because that's always been something that energized me. Sounds like maybe ice baths is going to be a part of that equation. And then I've really been in a commitment. I used to read primarily just business books, leadership, management, systems, operations, those types of books. I've been reading a lot more spiritual books. And so I think I'm on this journey of bringing my spirit into my work. Like an authentic.
How do you feel about manifestation?
I think it's a great word. It feels very intangible to me. So I think the way I have started to do it is intentions. Like my intention is to build trust with this person. My intention is to create a product that transforms trapped entrepreneurs. My intention is this. And I feel like when I do that, my art ends up being really powerful.
Do you think that you can think things into existence?
I think what you think affects what you do, and what you do affects the results you get.
So you need some action.
So you have to do something.
That's my problem with the manifestation concept.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think you can think anything and you can create it into existence if you put the energy behind it. But just to think about it and hope it appears, seems a little
Right.
far-fetched to me. And I'm a spiritual person. So but I think it's like that combination of
Mhm.
things, right? Where you have to be willing to believe and put that action behind it in order to actually, create it and put it into existence.
Right. I think the dreamer and the doer have to meet. If they
Yes.
don't meet, you don't create anything.
Yes.
Mhm.
Amazing. Amazing. What other things are you thinking about when I meet a business owner, for instance? The first thing that I do is understand what their goals are with their business, right? And a lot of that typically has to do with an exit. And it's interesting because that's not really the way that most people in my industry approach being an advisor to businesses and helping them design their expansion strategies and and execute their expansion strategies. But for me, it's like, how am I supposed to help you expand your business if I don't know what your goals are? And for you, I guess my question is, what are your goals with your business? What are your goals, and what are your ideal clients? That'll help me understand if there's people I could put you in touch with.
Yeah. So my service side of it is I really want to normalize the entrepreneurial journey. I think on social media and stuff, you have a lot of highlight reels of cars and good-looking people and adventures and fun, but the entrepreneurial journey does not look like that.
A lot of bullshit, a lot of fluff, a lot of glamorization of something that's not so glamorous.
Right. So
Yeah.
I want to normalize it.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of my expression. But then in actuality, what I do is I help them create their vision, then process map it, and then create execution plans, and then hold them accountable to the execution. That's essentially what I do.
Does it matter like what stage of their journey they're at, how big their business is? Do you have different parameters that they need to meet, or are you able to help really anybody?
Yeah. So when I first did OTS, it was more like 7-figure trapped entrepreneurs. Once you get to that 500,000, 7-figure mark, you have to get a number 2. You need systems. You hit that ceiling. And then there's multiple ceilings that you'll continue to hit. But that's typically the best type of person is somebody who is very clear on where they're going and what they want to do. They're typically really high energy, great salesperson, not the most organized, systematized person, but they know if they had the right support, whether integrator, executive systems, back office operations, that they could put their foot on the gas pedal and go as long as they didn't have the headache of once they throw it over the fence.
What's the dashboard that you described earlier?
Yeah, so there's only probably 10 to 12 metrics that somebody's going to need to see. And what we do is we pull those. So after you have your vision, you have 7 to 10 core functions that you have to do. How do you attract your customers? How do you create products? How do you deliver your products? How do you manage cash flow? How do you build and lead a team? All of those. So once those are mapped, there's going to be critical fail points in those workflows. And then the dashboard is pulling those out so you can look at them and know if something's on track or off track based on a number instead of having to be in the weeds. And that's one of the first leaps entrepreneurs have to make is getting out of the day-to-day. Like their pulse can't be day-to-day. Their pulse has to be something else. So that's kind of the dashboard, is being able to run the business based on the metrics, not the minutia.
Yeah, I think it's also referred to as really transitioning from like hustler to truly a CEO,
Yes.
which is one of my biggest challenges because I've hustled my way to where I am, and it's really tough to like change your mentality and be able to really pull yourself out of the minute to minute like hand to hand combat that it takes to get to a certain place. And I struggle with that for sure. I definitely, continue to get better. But I also need to, be very mindful, and my team actually does a great job of holding me accountable and saying, you do not need to join this Zoom meeting. Like, you should not join this Zoom meeting. Like, and I'm so used to doing everything. I became successful by doing everything myself and being a top producing broker. But when you start a company and you have several teams, and you're very responsible and involved in business development and the overall operations and the KPIs that you had mentioned, it's tough for me to pull myself out of the weeds and just have everything kind of reported up to me, and focus on those, let's call it 6-figure decisions or $1 million decisions, right? Like, I shouldn't be having a conversation. And today, like, for instance, I'm yelling at people that the sign in this Flatiron studio in New York City is not up yet, and that's like it's a big deal to me, but the team is getting the sign up, but I'm just so maniacal that I'm like, where's the sign? When's it? And I wasted my time to find out that it was literally shipped out this morning. And like, I just need to take a chill pill.
Yes. Well, also, I think what you're describing, because what you're describing, I resonate with as well. And I think it's a continual up-leveling process. I don't think it's like a check the box type of thing. I think this is the CEO journey.
Yeah.
But when we start businesses, we have a whatever it takes mentality.
Yeah, and exactly.
Then you reach a point whereas whatever it takes looks different. It's still whatever it takes, but you're now stepping really into that visionary role, which is not the checkbox role. So the checkbox role, you have to have somebody sitting in it, but that person who's sitting it, you have to trust.
Yes.
And trust is not an on-off switch. Trust is earned. Trust is built. It's developed. You have to learn how to mend it. Yeah. All of that is so critical. And I recently, my sister and I, because she's my integrator, we read the book Trust by Dr. Henry Cloud. Phenomenal book. I wish I had read it sooner.
I'm writing that down.
And we have started between her and I, we already have very, very high trust, but we're even more mindful of how critical trust is. And so we're intentional about developing it, because the only way for me to do whatever it takes, which looks different than what it did, is for me to fully trust her to check the 100 boxes and to think about a box that I didn't even think about, so that and come to me before I have to ask. And that's one of I created this how to work with me document basically. But if I have to ask you where something is at, trust is already broken, because I have just spent my time driving, in the car, shower, wherever, thinking about something that I already delegated. And I shouldn't have to think about that, because my highest and best use is thinking about all the other things and not being your brain also. Yeah. So we have to just put all of those things on the table, rather than kind of have these unspoken emotional contracts with people about what we need. We just tell them, this is exactly what I need. And I think it's helping me and my sister develop a stronger visionary integrator relationship, which I think is helping me to do whatever it takes in a different way.
I think that you're fortunate that it's your sister, because you obviously have a lot of history and it's a lot easier to trust family. And, for me, Sabre is now going on 13 years old. I have most of my leadership team is built up of people that I have worked with and know even prior to starting the company. Everybody that I'm surrounded by is somebody that I trust implicitly for a long period of time. Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably why so many startups fail, because we've had so many ups and downs and everything in between, and so many people on the team that we didn't trust, or were, like cancers that were spreading negativity. And, it's so challenging. I mean, it's really, really difficult to own, run, and operate a successful business. It's so difficult.
Well, you also have to think, if trust is like a hidden power, and if you don't have it, it's like a cancer. Yeah. And if you do have it, you have to protect it. It's not an on-off switch. And then if you really think trust is so critical, but then how many people don't trust themselves?
Right.
And we're trying to run companies with a bunch of people who don't even trust themselves.
Yeah.
And we're trying to build trust with them. So it is really challenging. Like, you have to put so much emphasis into the way you run your businesses that reinforces trust over and over and over and over again, because you're kind of developing people to trust themselves at the same time. So you're have a personal development company internally because you're developing people, and then externally you have your products or whatever it is you're offering, which is totally, and you're having to develop those people because they're go through a transformation. So in all aspects of our business, we're in the people development business. One of the core tenets of personal development is trust and action.
It's really amazing because I think you're also responsible for developing yourself as a CEO, because, you know, you're capped, right?
Yeah.
Like you're only, and it's funny because you said that you were your highest and best version of yourself when you were doing 75 hard and you had to show up for your mother every single day.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that at a certain point in my life that I had to basically do 75 hard as my normal, you know, that's like my normal day. And that is how I've been able to break through those ceilings and, you know, kind of barriers of, you know, different, revenue thresholds and, attracting, you know, better talent and all of the things. I had to really develop myself, and I had to be in better physical and mental, you know, condition where I'm not afraid for what's around the next corner. Like, I get punched in the face all day, every day, but like I laugh and smile as like my teeth are bleeding, as opposed to, you know, and I think that's so important. And I think I never really, to my point earlier about like surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. You know, I thought that I was better and more experienced and all the things until I realized I wasn't. And then ultimately I realized it was my responsibility to become that.
Yes.
Right. Like, I feel like today I'm actually only becoming what I thought I was 10 years ago. So I still have a lot of work to do.
As the human journey goes.
Yes.
But most people, I think, get stuck where at that level you're talking about, because there's the 4 levels of mastery, right? You're no good and you don't know it, right? Then you're no good and you know it. And that's where people get stuck, because we go right back to numbing and suppressing and distracting, because it's really hard to sit with the fact that now we're aware that we suck. And then we
Wait, did you read that somewhere, or is this like a known thing?
This is 4 levels of mastery. I don't know who created it. It could have been like Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar.
Yeah. Wow.
Like that. And then level 3 is you're getting better, but it takes conscious effort. And then level 4 is it's second nature. Like, you drive your car and you don't think about all of the motions you're doing when you're driving your car. But level 2, I think, is where most people, and I've done it in my own life, is like, I'm not ready to face this demon that's going to get me to level 3. So I'm going to distract. I'm going to numb. I'm going to pretend like I don't care that much about it. The dream isn't mine. I don't know. It's not that big of a deal. We minimize.
Yes.
And that's, to your point, is where you have to go put yourself in a different environment. Because if you don't get yourself in a different environment, then you're going to go back to the distracting and numbing. The environment is what pulls you out of it into level 3, because you've got people ahead of you who have come out of it. And it's not always the same community. So say it's financial, you got to put yourself in a financial community. Then say it's physical or mental or relational. You have to find multiple communities that is going to take you from level 2 to level 3 without letting you go numb.
I'm so visual, and you just like made that, like, I saw everything that you just said in like a chart, and it's like, I've already thought these things, but you just made it so much more clear. So thank you for that.
Yes.
That's good. That was like a breakthrough moment for me.
Mm-hmm.
So before we wrap up, go ahead. What were you going to say?
If it was a breakthrough moment, like, how do you see yourself applying it in your life?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's interesting because I've been through the phases, and I do truly believe that with a lot of the intention and the hard work that I'm putting in, and the uncomfortable work, and the constant discomfort that I'm putting myself in, It's becoming second nature now. So I definitely think I'm a lot closer to becoming pro, like that, that concept of self-mastery. Like, I mean, I used to think it was very selfish to focus on myself and make sure that I'm doing these things. But I realized through the journey that if I'm not really doing that stuff for myself, I can't serve other people the way that I was put here to serve them. Right. And I can't have the impact that I believe I'm here to make. So, yeah, I mean, I will constantly continue to push myself and make it my priority of my every moment of every day. So, but it took a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to get here, and I'm excited to keep going. Like that challenge is something that it's literally what I live for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also hear that you're finding a lot of joy in your journey now.
I am. Yeah. I mean, because, again, like I was operating so much out of ego and insecurity where the car that I drove or the, clothes that I wore, and all the things that growing up where I grew up, and being in New York City and being in the fashion business, right out of college and, that type of stuff. It's, as you grow and mature, you start to realize that there's so much more to it. And it doesn't mean that I don't like nice things. And I think it's okay. But I also, struggle with the concept of money. And there's this like dichotomy for me where of course that, money definitely is one of the metrics to success because it's easily measurable. And I realize that it's definitely a tool that equates to freedom, which is, something that I think, to your point, the only way that I could spend my days the way that I want to spend my days, especially as I'm getting older, is to be able to afford to be able to do the things that I want to do and have that level of freedom. But also like you, I don't, I love what I do so much. And if I don't, I make adjustments. So it's like the companies that I'm involved in adjust accordingly to what I enjoy, right? Like we went national from New York Metro because I wanted to travel. I was sick and tired of just spending my time in one area, and I wanted to I think that, for me, like creating relationships and, seeing new places and learning constantly, like those are all the things that I live for. And you can't do that if you're stuck in one place.
Yes. Yes. I resonate with all of that. Yeah. I feel like being selfish allows you to be selfless.
Yes.
And I used to think that I had to give before I could receive, but I have to give to myself first, and then I can give and receive with externally.
When did that click for you? Was there something like, when you started to operate that way, did people think you were selfish and you actually, had to sit with that and figure out whether or not you were, or were just kind of doing the right thing to help yourself and other people?
I feel like this could be a whole other show. So I almost died. And that was kind of my turning point.
When was this and what happened?
So this
will be another show, but high level.
I was rushed to the hospital. I had 105.6 fever. You die at 106. And I was in a very toxic relationship. You could call it abusive. And I was like, I cannot live one more day like this. And I was giving, trying just to keep everything together from business, work, relationship, everything. And it was killing me.
Wow.
And that was the moment that I was like, I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I don't care if I'm abandoned or rejected by my family. And actually, the sister who runs my company now did disown me for that choice. So that whole story of how we remended our trust and our relationship to even be to the place we are now is a journey in and of itself. But that moment was really like, spiritual suicide. Like I was basically spiritual. I was killing myself and calling it love.
Wow. And that it's interesting because I said earlier that I just feel like you're enlightened, and there has to be an event of some sort. And, obviously trauma and losing, a parent it was it for me. But yeah, I sense a part two in the future to dig in more there. In the spirit of time, we could just kind of leave it there, and we'll pick back up where we left off. But in the meantime, where can everybody find you? Because based on this conversation, who's not going to want to reach out and talk about how you could potentially help them in their business?
I'm Staci Gray all over the place. So StaciGray. And I'm on Instagram and Facebook and all the things. And we're going to be launching a YouTube channel podcast here soon as well to hopefully share more of these insights that we've gained over the years.
Amazing. What a great conversation. I took a lot out of it. I'm sure everybody else will. And it was an amazing time getting to know you, Staci. Thanks for joining us.